Hey, welcome back. Today I'm going to be talking about the short film that I made called Motion. It is another breakdown video, and this one is going to be fairly fast just because I don't think there's very much to talk about. And also, I am recording this on the EOS M6 Mark II, which gives me a record limit of 30 minutes. So I'm going to see if I can explain all of this under 30 minutes. Otherwise, I don't. I'll go over 30 minutes. Anyways, to start with, the project settings for this particular project was slightly different. It's not the typical LUT and Rec 709 conversion that lives on the timeline, but rather at the group level, just because there was like a little montage or like vignette that had clips from various sources that were color graded differently, and I just did not want the look LUT that gets applied to the whole timeline to be applied to the already rendered clips that already have their own look and LUT and etc. So that was the main difference. So if we go into our LUTs really quick, you'll see that in the timeline there's absolutely nothing, and everything gets managed in the group. And for some reason I put the sharp node before like the Rec 709 conversion for some reason. I'm not sure why I did that, but I did that. And so at the post level, it's Rec 709, film LUT. It should have been sharp and then grain, but not sure why I did it that way. And then the pre-clip obviously is noise reduction and then a CST in from, which surprisingly, this camera, which this short film was shot with the M6 Mark II because this was sort of like a statement that you don't really need the best top gear to make something look beautiful or to make a film. And so the camera that I'm using right now to film this vlog with was actually used to shoot this short film with, which is again the M6 Mark II by Canon. And because there is actually no log built into this, I treated this footage as Rec 709. So as you can see up here, I treat it as Rec 709. I converted to DaVinci Wide Gamut, and then in the post I bounce it from DaVinci Wide Gamut to Rec 709 again. So that's like the best way that I could essentially broaden out the colors, like the value, so that I could tweak them at the clip level and then bring them back into Rec 709. So that was like the only little caveat to this, is that I wasn't shooting this in any kind of log format, and I just went from 709 to DaVinci back to 709, and then any individual clip per clip basis I made my adjustments, and this is the result. I think the only thing worth mentioning are the few places where I actually used parallel nodes. So for example, in here in the eye clip, I actually just used a parallel node to brighten up my eye when I darkened up the clip a little bit. When I color graded, it came out a little bit dark. And so just use a parallel node to lighten it up because it just was a little bit too dark for me. And then the only other place I think that gave me a hard time was the final shot, actually, because as you can see, I have quite a bit of nodes going on here. And if we just select them all, if I can do that, you can see that there was a little bit of overexposure here on the corner of the screen in the sky. The highlights were kind of blown. And mind you, this is with me shooting on a 16mm wide open at like 1.8. It's like a rookie thing to do, I know. Essentially, it was just opened up a little bit wide, and I did have an ND filter slapped on, which I currently do now. And unfortunately, with this ND filter, it does create a kind of like a weird vignette on the corners of the screen. And so that's sort of what happened here. Unfortunately, it only happened on one corner. I wish it would have kind of happened on this side, because then it probably wouldn't have been overexposed, but you know, it is what it is. And so what I did was I did my normal color grading, slapped some sharpness and a vignette just to darken the edges up. I'm not sure why it's doing the rest of it. And so I was stuck with a still slightly overexposed sky, which I used a parallel node to bring down those highlights, and then an extra node to bring up that corner, lighten it up a little bit more because it was a little bit too dark. And then I felt like the clip itself was still a little bit overexposed, and so I added another parallel node that just kind of brings the exposure down a tad bit. So it gives me a somewhat decent looking picture, although I'm pretty sure with this node I probably could have like pushed it up a bit more. So you see that looks slightly better. Same with the sky. I probably could have, yeah, I mean, I could have kind of made it look slightly better, but overall, didn't look that bad. I play it back, everything looks pretty good, and I was pretty happy with the shot. So that really is like the quick and dirty breakdown for the color grading portion. Nothing special, nothing too much to go in depth. But what I did want to go over was how a lot of the shots that I originally wanted to do for this short film were just not panning out the way I wanted to. I had a lot of different shots in mind, and when it actually came time to execution, it simply just didn't work. So let's go ahead and switch over to those clips. From the start, it was already kind of a big issue to try to time the slider. Ever since I got the slider, so I got quite a couple of things earlier this year, which was a slider, some diopters, and a smoke machine. And I think those are all wonderful little accessories to have for filmmaking, just because I feel like it adds to the shot. So obviously a slider adds a little bit of like dynamic motion, and I don't know, it just adds motion to the shot that just makes it a bit more exciting than just a typical static shot. And so the only thing that was kind of a pain here was to figure out, hey, do I want the door closed? Do I want it open? Am I timing this correctly? Am I looking away from the camera at the right time? You know, has the slider stopped? So this took a couple of tries, but eventually I nailed the shot that I wanted to. But this is an example where I turned too early, and then I just crack a nice little smile right there because I know I messed up. Nothing big there. Now, when it came to the shots of me laying in bed, that was another story. I wanted a shot of me laying in bed looking bored, annoyed, or just pensive, and I wanted to sort of like hang off the side of the bed, and I just could not figure out a good shot. I mean, I tried everything. I tried like hanging my arms over the shot, like over the bed, crossing them so that I'm like on top of my arms, like my forearms. I tried rolling over to like look at the sky, and I mean, let's just see. I tried just about everything. First of all, it was kind of a pain to get this like slider leveled. It's supposed to be like obviously horizontal, but you can tilt it so that it's vertical, and it almost fell on me a couple of times. But I mean, I tried everything. I even rolled over, and obviously I made sure to white balance my shots because it is a pain in post to get that fixed. And so when I figured out that like I couldn't get the shots to work on the edge of the bed, I ended up setting up a C-stand so that it hung over the bed, and I was like, okay, maybe I can lay in bed different types of ways that didn't look awkward so that I can just like look at the ceiling. So it's like me looking at the ceiling, thinking and being pensive, but unfortunately it didn't work. I tried every single thing, and it just looked awkward, just crossed arms behind my back where it's like I'm trying to look sexy or something, I don't know. Hands on my belly. And then I thought, oh, hey, why don't I just like plop myself onto the bed? Like I just got done watching a video. I'm just gonna plop myself onto the bed because I'm bored, I'm annoyed, or something. And then that kind of worked out a little bit better. And of course, I tried like all the other variations, such as hands behind my head, hand on my belly, arms out. And none of those landed until I did the sideways land. That looked a little bit more defeated, and that's kind of what I was going for. And so once I did that, that was wonderful. But at the same time, I didn't know that that was the shot I was going to go with. So when it came to the close-up shots, it was time to use the diopters. And so I tried everything with the diopters, all the close-up shots hanging over me. Obviously, I couldn't get those shots to work. It looked very awkward, very weird. Like I was looking at a cheeseburger, getting ready to bite into it or something, you know, just very awkward. But once I found that sideways shot of me laying in bed, face on the side of the mattress, then that's the shot that I went with. And of course, that's like my favorite shot of the film, other than maybe like the ending shot. But yeah, that was kind of a hassle. There was also a scene where I was supposed to look like annoyed or exhausted after going through so many videos and watching countless videos. And again, I was trying to do like a close-up diopter shot of like my eyes, like kind of like going over, reading, scanning the TV, the monitor, etc. And again, they just looked very awkward. It just looked like a meme, I don't know. And I just ended up shooting from the shadow side like most people typically tell you you should shoot interviews and stuff. And so that's when I got that really nice like shadowy side with like the nice warm light hitting my face, and I loved it. it came out good. And so the next shot that I really wanted, was an exterior shot of me driving. And this is like the shot of me like getting up and going out and like remaining in motion, like I said. And I don't know if it's because this camera simply doesn't have IBIS, but this thing was like shaking really bad, and there was no way to correct it in post. I tried every type of stabilization and it simply didn't work. And unfortunately, I did forget to like set the lens to manual, and so whenever a little bit of sunlight would hit, it would just knock the whole thing out of focus. It sucked. I hated it. And although I could have used like say an action camera, I wanted to shoot the majority of this film with the M6 Mark II, just to give myself like a challenge to see if I could just make it work with one camera. Obviously, like in the real world, you'll probably have like more gear to work with, or unlimited gear, or you have more options to work with. But this was sort of a challenge I set for myself, is can I make this non-C-Log camera work for this short film and still look good? And so once I realized that it was super shaky, lost focus plenty of times, I just kind of gave up, and I had to figure out a new shot right then and there before I lost sun, because the sun was setting and I was running out of light, and I did not want to reshoot this, as this was like the 6th day of me shooting. I think this was spread over the course of like 6 days, and that was like maybe 3 to 4 hours each day of me just trying to get a shot in. And on top of that, I think I got sick, and so I was like trying to recover, and I felt like just this video had gone way past longer than it should have, and I really needed to get it out. And you can kind of hear it in my voice in the intro when I'm doing some of the voice acting. My voice sounds a little bit rough, but then as the voiceover goes on, it kind of starts clearing up, and then it doesn't sound that bad. And then the one time that I actually find something that looked good, the camera shadow was in the way, unfortunately, and I was just kind of bummed. I did think about like punching it in, but then the faces that I was making just looked really dumb, and so I just cut it out. I did resort to some interior shots, and although the interior shots did look kind of okay, when you look at the shot in full, I just looked very awkward in the car, and it looked unflattering. It just did not look good at all. And unfortunately, I did have to trash those clips, those scenes. And I fiddled and fiddled with as much as I could. I drove back and forth. I mean, the people that were driving there were probably like wondering, what the heck's wrong with this guy? He's just driving back and forth through the same area over and over again. But I was trying whatever I could to get the right shot. I think, like I said, I ended up going with the interior shot, and that's because that's where I noticed the least amount of vibration and like shakiness in my footage. Even that itself was kind of a pain, because I would set it up, like I used like a suction cup that goes onto the mirror of the car, and even then I would set it up and like I'd forget to flip the screen out, or I couldn't adjust it, or it was adjusted too low and I'd have to unsuction it and then resuction it, and it was a pain. And like I said, I was running out of daylight. I was like really trying my best to find a good shot, and I found a passable shot. Not the shot that I wanted, unfortunately. The exterior shot of the car, of me driving, to me looks a lot better, a lot cooler, but it just simply didn't work. And again, that was like another challenge. It's like, assume that you can't reshoot this, and this is all you're given, or this is all you have, and you have to make it work. And I just made it work. Again, putting myself through limitations to see if the creativeness inside me makes it work. And fortunately for this short film, it did work. The last shot, of course, was me sort of walking into the distance and taking a picture of dry hills. I mean, it seems dumb, but what I originally imagined for this shot was a nice green shot, like of water. In particular, I actually wanted to shoot this final shot at like Lake Ming, because there's a lot of green, there's a lot of water. But on this particular day, which was a weekend too, everyone and their mother decided to be out there that day, and I mistakenly thought this would be a great time to go out and shoot. And there was tons of traffic, tons of cars, and I'm still a little bit camera shy. I don't like to be out in public with a camera and record myself. I just feel like it looks kind of weird, or I don't know, I'm embarrassed to do that. But slowly I'm trying to get over that fear. But yeah, that shot just was simply not going to work. There was too many cars, too much traffic, too much people. And so I settled for this shot, but mostly because of the stop sign, or like the end sign at the end of that road. Just because when I first framed this shot, I mean, that looked really boring, me taking a picture of like nothing and then walking off. But then sort of the symbolism of me going up to like what's considered the end, giving one last look to the past, essentially, looking at the end and then moving forward, kind of went with the message of, you know, staying in motion, never stopping, and doing what you love. And that sort of just ended up working in the end. And although it's kind of silly that I'm taking a picture of nothing or like an ugly hill, the symbolism that was in that shot was kind of relatable. And I thought that was cool and I liked it and it worked. At least I hope it did. With that being said, that was a really fun short film to do. It, like I said, it challenged me with this camera, a camera that maybe some people might not consider ideal for a short film. I know there's a lot of people out there that might recommend this camera, but then there's also a lot of influencers who might probably say like, go get the most expensive thing, go get a 10-bit footage camera, etc., etc. Of course, the biggest thing for this camera is that it does shoot 4K uncropped, and it does some kind of crazy archaic magic behind the scenes that gives you that 4K footage. But this is not a special camera. It is a pocket-sized camera, semi-pocket, I guess, interchangeable lens, 8-bit footage, no C-Log, no log, no nothing in general. Maybe a couple of picture profiles, but the only thing that I think I installed was, so I can't remember what it's called, but it's a picture profile out there that sort of simulates like log. So that's like the closest thing that I got to log, but you know, it was not log at all. It's literally just boosting everything down, contrast, sharpness, hue, like all that stuff is just kind of blown down. So it's just a good challenge, limited tools. Tried to focus myself to only use this camera and no other camera, with the exception of that vignette or that montage in the middle. That was obviously done with multiple different cameras. It was a fun challenge. I liked the story that I'm telling, and I've been enjoying making these short films where I sort of teach you or show you or tell you what I've learned over the course of my time on this earth when it comes to gas, gear, passions, etc. It's just one of those things that, because I don't have actors to act for me, I have to be my own actor, my own star in my own movies. So yeah, that concludes just about everything I was going to say. I can't think of anything else. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for accompanying me on this filmmaking journey. I do plan to do this for a living someday, and I am learning along the way. So if you guys have any tips, tricks, or anything else that you think would be helpful for me to know, or for anybody else to know when they come across this video, feel free to comment down below. But otherwise, thank you all for watching, and I'll see you again next time. I think that should be it. Hey, look, I did it under 24 minutes. I did it under 30 minutes. Hopefully I didn't like talk too fast, but